You're listening to Don K. Reed's Doo-Wop Shop on the Belmonts Internet Radio.
Dream, 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 dream. Dream, dream, dream when I want you. In my arms when I want you. And all your charms whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream. Dream, dream, dream when I feel blue in the night and I need you to hold me tight whenever I want you. All I have to do is dream. I can make you mine, taste your lips of wine anytime, night or day. Only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. I need you so that I could die. I love you so, and that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. Dream, 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 dream. I can make you mine, taste your lips of wine anytime, night or day. Only trouble is, gee whiz, I'm dreaming my life away. I need you so that I could die. I love you so, and that is why whenever I want you, all I have to do is dream. Dream, 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 dream. Dream, 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 dream.
Phil Everly of the Everly Brothers. Phil, how you doing?
Well, fine, Don. How's everything over there?
Okay, great. Going well, I'm happy to say.
That's good.
And let me wish you a very happy holiday season before we forget to do that.
And for you, too.
Okay. You know, I had the pleasure of meeting you at Westbury a couple of years ago. In fact, Joe Villa was the gentleman who actually got me to be introduced to you, even though I played your records for many, 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 many years. I never had the pleasure of actually meeting you. I did meet you by going out and buying that first record, and I think that's the nicest thing anybody can say to an artist is that you went out and you bought, you know, the records. And I bought a lot of Everly Brothers records.
Well, that's really nice to hear. Appreciate it.
Before I ever thought of getting into this business. And I also saw you at the Freed shows at the Brooklyn Paramount many years ago.
Boy, were those something. They were something else, weren't they?
They certainly were. Let me ask you this. As the performer, as a guy in the audience with all the kids around me and just going crazy, as you well know, what was it like for the performer up there on stage?
You know, it was a really kind of a, when you look back on it, it was the best of the period, I think. I always call it the golden age of rock, you know, because you were touring with a bunch of different acts, and there was just, you know, a lot of people around, a lot of entertainers, and you were making friends, you know, like, and it was a different kind of thing. You didn't do like a whole concert show like we do now.
Exactly.
That only lasted, those big packages only lasted about 3 years. And that period never ever really appeared for the acts. They got too big and, you know, like, and
exactly.
They worked separately.
I got out one of my old Freed books and I saw the artists that were listed there. I mean, you couldn't put together, if everybody was still with us, you couldn't put that package together again. I mean, you just couldn't afford it.
You know, it was really kind of funny. I was talking with Joe Villa the other day. We were going over the old times and the big old tours, and it was like being in a kind of a rolling college, you know, because everybody was your age and we were all kids, and it was just fun, you know. Great time. It
was a magic that I don't think the kids today experience going to concerts today. Do you agree?
No, I think you're absolutely right. You know, it's a terrible thing to be sitting around looking back and saying, you know, those were the good old days. But
it was true.
It absolutely was. Unfortunately, it's absolutely the truth. I don't think that life had a real nice, sweet innocence to it too, and so the fun was kind of just fun instead of, you know, kind of wild.
Now, let me ask you this about the Everly Brothers. You guys go back a ways, and you started singing very, very young, and you were influenced, obviously, by your mom and dad, Ike and Margaret, right?
Right.
They were country singers, were they not?
Well, we started off in a family country family show, on live radio back. Well, probably. Well, we first started when I was 6 and Donald was 8, and that's in the late 40s, and then we worked as a family unit every morning for, like at 6 o'clock in the morning we did a country show with Mom and Dad. Mm-hmm. That's really kind of where we got
started, huh?
I got our education, too. Our dad was a great teacher. I wish I was as good,
When you say teacher, was he a musician as well as a singer?
He was, Dad is in country circles is fairly well known as being one of the innovators of what they call thumbpick playing, which is very similar to what Chet Atkins does. He's the best master at it now. Mm-hmm. And a guy named my dad and a guy named Mose Reger taught a guy named Merle Travis, who went on to write 16 Tons and all of that, and took it out of that small Kentucky town, and kind of from that spread it around the country.
Right. You know what I want to ask you? You mentioned Chet Atkins. Now, he had a specific part in your career, didn't he?
Well, because of our father's thumbpick playing, he was friends with Chet Atkins. That all is part of the integral story. Because of that association, Chet helped bring us to Nashville, and was a major supporter of ours for. We spent 2 or 3 years just knocking on doors, but Chet was always trying to get us in someplace, and would always introduce us and help us get a chance to audition. Mm-hmm. And that eventually led to that Cadence record, when Cadence came down and went into the country field. And, of course, then what was happening was a lot of young country acts like Buddy Knox, Jimmy Bowen, Buddy Holly and the Crickets. And right. They were really kind of country acts that were doing something new with a shot of country music and a shot of R&B,
Exactly. Like
and
Eddie
that's
Cochran,
kind of where rock and roll before the word came from.
Yeah, Eddie Cochran, I guess, would fall into that category, too.
Yeah, exactly. You could go through quite a bit of people. You could get a real list. There's a real straight root right into country music, just like there's a straight root into R&B.
Mm-hmm. Now, you and your brother Don, had you recorded before we heard from you on Cadence Records, which of course was Archie Bleyer's label, and most people know him as the band leader on the old Arthur Godfrey show.
That's right. Yeah, I was 18 when we recorded for him. We had cut a record when I was 16, and we were... it was a real straight-ahead country record, and we did 2 waltzes. I never will forget it. We were standing around. It wasn't what we actually played, when we were just playing, but it was what we got a job doing, and so we took it. Mm-hmm. Of course, it died. It didn't do anything. We heard there was 3 of them sold, but we had 2,
Now, when you recorded and went to Cadence, did you go there as a country act, basically?
Well, what happened is that Archie was expanding his label, and he decided to go into the country market, and we were on the verge of just at the tail end of giving up, and we had gone to a publishing house, Acuff Rose publishing house, where he was down soliciting acts, mm-hmm. And we just happened to be there at the right time. It's that, you stand around and knock on doors, and just about the time you're leaving town, somebody discovers you,
Exactly.
And that's how we lucked out. And then he had the song Bye Bye Love, and... that
was written by a pair, Bryant.
Boudleaux and Felice Bryant.
Yeah, right.
Who became our kind of the main people for us. But when they brought it to us, and Donald had this guitar riff intro on some of the original things that we were doing, and he just pulled that off and put it on that, and that's kind of where that guitar thing came from. Mm-hmm. And then we wound up with this great association with Boudleaux and Felice, who were master writers. He wrote a countless number of hits for us.
Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness, hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye love, bye-bye sweet caress, hello emptiness, I feel like I could could die. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. There goes my baby with someone new. She sure looks happy, I sure am blue. She was my baby till he stepped in. Goodbye to romance, that might have been. Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness. Hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye love, bye-bye sweet caress. Hello emptiness, I feel like I could die. Bye-bye my love, goodbye. I'm through with romance, I'm through with love. I'm through with counting the stars above. And here's the reason that I'm so free. My loving baby is through with me. Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness. Hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye love, bye-bye sweet caress. Hello emptiness, I feel like I could die. Bye-bye my love, goodbye. Bye-bye my love, goodbye. Bye-bye my love, goodbye. Bye-bye my love.
Now, that song, basically, Bye Bye Love, was written and recorded as more of a country song than a rock song, right?
Well, really, yeah.
Were you guys surprised when it took off and all of a sudden you're rock and roll, singing idols?
Oh, we didn't, expect any of that. In fact, the real truth of the matter was that I personally went down for the $64 session fee because that's what all I cared about. I thought, well, if we could get $64 out of singing this, let's sing it. And that's exactly what. And we we got a little quick job after that, working a tent show in Alabama and Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And we were gone about a month, and by the time we came back, it was in the top 10 in Nashville and breaking pretty much all over the country. It was just great.
Now, when was it that you realized, while during doing that tent show, that this thing was really busting out all over?
Well, we were doing the tent show, and nobody knew us, in the beginning, and then the country, because it was a funny record. It was like Bye Bye Love was actually I think it was in the top 5, at least in R&B. And it was number 1 country and I don't know, 1 or 2 in pop. And so we'd be playing towards the end of that tour, and jocks actually knew us, and it was like surprising.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, there's a funny story. I don't know if you're familiar with the country act Mel Tillis. A lot of people are.
Oh, sure.
And Mel was on the tour too, and he'd had I don't want to bore you with all these stories.
No, it's great. It's great.
But he'd had a career that had been very funny. We'd cut a hit, and it would always get covered by a man named Webb Pierce.
I know that name too. Sure.
Well, Webb Pierce had 21 or 24 number 1s in a row in country music. Was a huge star, and we got covered by him. We had this nibble going. And I remember we telling Mel that Webb Pierce had covered us, and Mel just dropped his head and shook it like, oh, it's over now, kids, And so my brother got on the phone and called Archie Blyer up in Cadence and said, Webb Pierce has covered us, and what are we going to do now? And he said, who's Webb Pierce? Because he lived in New York and wasn't that familiar with country music.
Right.
And he had already started to see this thing happen on a national basis in the pop.
Now, let me ask you this. This is just something I just thought of. Now, Bye Bye Love, as you said, was originally recorded as a country, but yet it became this huge rock hit. Now, the songs that followed, were they written as country songs, or were they, now all of a sudden you're rock and roll stars, were they written with rock in mind, or did you just keep going the way you were going, and if the song was good, you recorded it?
Well, when Donald had put on that guitar riff, because what was happening and was kind of happening in all kinds of pockets in that in Lubbock, Texas, in that pocket, you know, and it was just, and in California with Eddie Cochran and all of them, that country influence was being felt because the kids were doing dance stuff. You wanted to dance, and so you kind of did things that were in that vein, you know. So when it came down to do the second record, we turned down a bunch of things that were kind of more country orientated, and went ahead and Boodle Bryant brought in a song called "Wake Up Little Susie," which we liked.
And that gave you a little problem, though, didn't it?
Yeah, we had a lot of hard time cutting that, getting that right. Actually, that story is fairly involved, but what it was is that we knew that the second record was the most important one we had because a tremendous amount of people were one-record acts. And what we did was we really took our time and actually had a lot of trouble with it. But it had that Donald came up with another great guitar riff, and
you were on your way.
And we were on our way.
Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. We've both been sound asleep. Wake up, little Susie, and weep. The movie's over, it's 4 o'clock, and we're in trouble deep. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, what are we gonna tell your mama? What are we gonna tell your pop? What are we gonna tell our friends when they say, ooh la la, wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, I told your mama that you'd be in by 10. Well, Susie, baby, looks like we goofed again. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. We gotta go home. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. The movie wasn't so hot, it didn't have much of a plot. We fell asleep, our goose has scooped, our reputation he shot. Wake up, little Susie, wake up, little Susie. Well, what are we gonna tell your mama? What are we gonna tell your pop? What are we gonna tell our friends when they say, ooh la la, wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie.
But you also had a problem, not only perhaps recording it, but also in the acceptance of it. People kind of raised their eyebrows.
Oh, well, that's the funny thing. We still tell the story that it was banned in Boston, and
it's hard to believe today, isn't it?
It really is like a joke, isn't it?
It sure is.
And we thought it was silly at the time, too. But the idea that kids had fallen asleep in a drive-in, you know, just had all kinds of terrible implications.
Now, you had some great songs that followed that. All I Have to Do Is Dream, Claudette. That was written by Roy Orbison, was it not? Or about his wife?
That's exactly right. You know your stuff. You really do.
Oh, oh, Claudette. Oh, oh, Claudette. I got a brand new baby and I feel so good. She loves me even better than I thought she would. I'm on my way to her house and I'm plumb out of breath. And when I see her tonight, I'm gonna squeeze her to death. Claudette, pretty little pet Claudette, never make me fret Claudette, but she's the greatest little girl that I've ever met. I get the best love and that I'll ever get from Claudette, pretty little pet Claudette. Oh, oh, Claudette. Well, I'm a lucky man, my baby treats me right. She's gonna let me hug and kiss and hold her tight. When the date is over and we're at her front door, and when I kiss her goodnight, I'll holler more, more, more. Claudette, pretty little pet Claudette, never make me fret Claudette, but she's the greatest little girl that I've ever met. I get the best love and that I'll ever get from Claudette. Oh, pretty little pet Claudette. Oh, oh, Claudette. be so happy for the rest of my life. Oh, and my brand new baby is my brand new wife. Claudette, pretty little pet Claudette, never made me fret Claudette, but she's the greatest little girl that I've ever met. I get the best loving that I'll ever get from Claudette, pretty little pet Claudette. Oh, oh, Claudette, Claudette, oh, oh, Claudette, Claudette.
We were running to Roy up in a doing a show up in Indiana, I believe it was, and we just asked Roy if he had a song, and he whipped that out. As a consequence of that, we said we were going to do it. Roy had been on Sun Records, and he got moved to Acuff Rose people who wanted his writing, because there was a Logic here, and they helped move him to Nashville because of that song, and that helped start his big career with Monument Records.
I see. Uh-huh. All right. Bird Dog, of course, you had devoted to you. Let me think. Problems, Till I Kissed You. Great recordings. And the song Till I Kissed You, that was kind of a groundbreaker. And it had something to do with the fact not only did you use Buddy Holly's group, the Crickets, to back you up on it, but something with Jerry Allison on drums. It was the first time a whole drum set had been put into a studio. Is that right?
Well,
something to that effect.
Yeah, well, actually, what he did is it was the first time that they took a set of drums and he added a bunch of extra toms to it.
I see.
And what he did is we made the drums a kind of like a lead instrument, because he put that boom boom thing in it, which J.I. thought up,
Mm-hmm.
And it had not until that time hadn't happened that somebody would use a drum as what you'd call a lead fill,
Mm-hmm.
and which gave it a real distinct
sound to it.
Yeah, really did.
Never felt like this until I kissed you. How did I exist until I kissed you? Never had you on my mind. Now you're there all the time. Never knew what I missed till I kissed you. I kissed you. Oh yeah, things have really changed since I kissed you. My life's not the same now that I kissed you. Oh yeah, you got a way about you. Now I can't live without you. Never knew what I missed till I kissed you. I kissed you. Oh yeah, you don't realize what you do to me, and I didn't realize what a kiss could be. You got a way about you. Now I can't live without you. Never knew what I missed till I kissed you. I kissed you. Oh yeah, you don't realize what you do to me, and I didn't realize what a kiss could be. You got a way about you. Now I can't live without you. Never knew what I missed till I kissed you. I kissed you. Oh yeah, I kissed you. I kissed you. Oh yeah.
I'm on the phone with Phil Everly, of course, of the Everly Brothers, and Phil, we thank you for, sharing some time with us. Don't go away yet.
Okay.
From Cadence, you went over to Warner Brothers, right?
We did 3 years with Cadence, and then we were very security conscious, and we signed a really large deal. It was one of the first big deals of recording. And of course, it's pennies now, but it was a big deal in that days. And we had to started off, and we had to come up with a hit. And
you did, didn't you?
Yeah, we lucked out there. And that also, because of J.I., we really got concerned with drums. And there's a drummer that had played on a lot of records with us called Buddy Harmon, and he came up with he spent his off time playing for strippers down in what they call Printer's Alley in Nashville.
Well, that's a good training ground, right?
Yeah, he had a unique way of drumming, I can tell you.
I'll bet.
And he came up with that drum pattern behind Kathy's Clown, which I think was the main sauce of that.
And that was your biggest success, was it not? Out of all the songs you guys have had?
Internationally, that's the biggest record we ever had. And it held the record in Europe for a long time for being number one, which has since gone, but it was a power record, it really was.
Don't want your love anymore. Don't want your kisses, that's for sure. I die each time I hear this sound. Here he comes, that's Kathy's clown. I've gotta stand tall. You know a man can crawl. Oh, he knows you tell lies and he lives on passing by. He's not a man at all. Don't want your love anymore. Don't want your kisses, that's for sure. I die each time I hear this sound. Here he comes, that's Kathy's clown. When you see me shed a tear, and you know that it's sincere, don't you think it's kind of sad that you're treating me so bad, or don't you even care? Don't want your love anymore. Don't want your kisses, that's for sure. I die each time I hear this sound. Here he comes, that's Kathy's clown. That's Kathy's clown. That's Kathy's.
You had some other great songs on Warner Brothers, of course. So Sad, Ebony Eyes, Walk Right Back, Temptation.
Crying in the Rain we had,
Yeah.
which is the only, that was written by Howie Greenfield and Carole King. They only wrote one song together, from what I understand, and that was it.
Yeah, Howie Greenfield used to write with Neil Sedaka, of course.
Right. Howie has written a tremendous amount of hits, and we all know Carole King did too.
Sure.
Every time we sing it, I always tell Donald that, I always say it on stage, that we should have married her. You know, she was the smartest one we ever met.
You guys did write some for yourselves, didn't you?
We had some, Kathy's Clown we wrote, and then When Will I Be Loved I wrote. Donald wrote Till I Kissed You, and So Sad, and a bunch of others. You know.
When you become a successful recording act, do people all of a sudden you find material at your front door? I mean, does it just kind of pile up?
Well, when you're hot, it's easier to get a song than it is when you're cold. And you know, I've always found that if you can last 5 years, you usually have a long career. But you're not going to be as hot as that you were in the initial part. And that's about consistent with what happened to us.
I mentioned at the beginning of the interview that I saw you out at Westbury a couple of years ago, and I know you've been there since I saw you, and you continue to perform, and you two are just great. I mean, what is it with, you think it's the harmonies that everybody just, is in awe of with the Everly Brothers. The voice is so close has got to do with the fact that you are brothers. I mean,
I think that's there's a genetic makeup, I think, that makes you blend. Of course, we were, and also to being raised together. You know, you speak alike and sound alike in that sense. And because even after Don and I, when we spent our time apart, we spent 10 years apart. When we came back, you notice that you have different accents. You know, you're just slightly different. It took a while for us to get back in tune with that.
Mm-hmm. Now, at that point, you were kind of trying a solo career, both of you, right?
Well, we went through that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't work together for about 10 years and didn't start that again until 84.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was great to have you back again, I'll tell you, because you guys are great on stage. Incredible. I mean, there's nothing lost between Don and Phil, the Everly Brothers, I'll tell you.
Well, you know, it's the funny thing. We don't work that much. We work 3 to 4 months a year. If usually in the summer, we hardly ever work in the winter. It's just
I
a
wish
rare
I could
occasion.
say that.
You know?
That's great, though.
Yeah. And we try to keep it. If it's not going to be fun, we don't do it.
Yeah, I can understand that in this business. If you don't enjoy it, why bother, right?
That's right.
And you know, with the Beatles' big bash, the anthology Volume 1, I have to ask you this. To me, the Beatles, their harmonies, and the Everly Brothers' harmonies were, to me, very much akin. I think you guys had a big influence on the Beatles. How do you feel about that?
Well, we probably have some play in that. I've spoken to them, and they've always been really nice about complimenting all of that. But it's the one thing I always say about the English, and this is not to, when we had what I call the English invasion, you know, like in the early '60s. The trouble with that was, the only thing that I think was wrong with it, although I think it helped the music a lot, and the Beatles will certainly move the technology along, but it also stopped a lot of American acts from being discovered and found and this, that, and the other. But we all know that rock and roll's an American product, and otherwise they'd all sing with English accents, you know.
It's true, absolutely. But I'm sure you influenced them greatly. Now, I asked you before we started what song you would like me to come out of this with, and you mentioned Let It Be Me. Now, wasn't that one of the first ones, or the first one, you recorded away from Nashville in New York City here?
Yes, absolutely. We actually did it in New York, and that originally was a instrumental found on Donald found it on Chet Atkins' instrumental album. And he called up Chet and said, "Does it have lyric?" And and there was an English translation to it, and actually a new English lyric had been written to it. And a funny story I heard about the man whom I can't place offhand that wrote it. They said that she doesn't know how his wife said she didn't know how he wrote it because he was never that romantic around the house. But I've always loved the song. I think it's one of the best lyrics that we've ever had a chance to do, and also to one of the most beautiful melodies.
Okay, well, we'll end up with that, but one thing I want to ask you, and I have to ask you, and I'm sure people who are listening would like to know, is there anything in the immediate future that you'd like to tell your fans here in the tri-state area that's going on with Don and Phil Everly?
Well, we're just going to have a good holiday and this, that, and the other. We're talking about maybe doing another album, but that's still a ways off. We just take our time doing, if we don't find something we really want to do, we just don't do it.
Okay, well, I can understand that. Well, I thank you, Phil, for taking time out to talk with me. I'm glad I had the opportunity to talk in your dressing room out at Westbury and finally get you on the phone here in the doo-wop shop. One question, since we do a lot of group harmony in this particular show, did any of those groups, the group harmony sound and music, affect Don and Phil Everly in any way at all, do you think?
Well,
I'm just curious. I mean, it's
you mean like Dion and the Belmonts?
Or the Moon Glows, the Flamingos, Five Satins, Harp Tones, these kind of...
what it did do is inspire you to be as good as you could possibly be, because they were awfully good.
They were, weren't they?
They sure were.
Okay, and so were the Everly Brothers, and still are. Thank you, Phil Everly, for talking with us here in the doo-wop shop tonight. I appreciate it very much, and I want to thank, of course, our friend Joe Villa for kind of setting this thing up for me.
Yeah, when you see Joe, tell him hello again from me. I usually speak to him pretty often.
I will absolutely do that. And Phil, thanks again. Say hello to Don, and have a great holiday.
You too. Bye-bye.
I bless the day I found you. I want to stay around time we meet, love, I find complete love without your sweet love. What would life be? So never leave me lonely. Tell me you love me only, and that you'll always let it be me. Each time we meet, love, I find complete love without your sweet love. What would life be? So never leave me lonely. Tell me you love me only, and that you'll always let it be me.
The new watch out with Don gave me